Hey guys, welcome to the 86th C programming tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to continue looking at recursion. And in the previous video's description I left a link to a couple practice problems, and in this video we're going to be going over the first practice problem, and that is as follows. Write a recursive function called SumDigits to return the sum of all the digits in a given integer value. Use a helper function if necessary. We're actually not going to be using a helper function for our solution. I'm honestly not even sure how you would, but anyways, we're just going to go ahead and solve this problem. So if you weren't really paying attention, what we need to do is just simply calculate the sum of all the digits in a certain number. So let's say we had some input number like this. We had 237. Well, our goal is to just add up the individual digits of this number. So 2 plus 3 plus 7, which is 12. So yeah, that's just all our function needs to do. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do for this is just go ahead and write the prototype for our function. So since we don't really want to be dealing with any negatives, we're just going to go ahead and make both the return type and the input value unsigned. So we're just going to say unsigned int sum digits, and the first parameter will just be unsigned as well, like I said before. So unsigned int, and I'll just call it num. Okay, so now that we have our prototype, really the next thing that we need to do is come up with our base case. So what would be the easiest input value for us to solve for? And that's simply 0. If they pass in 0, we just return 0, and that's just what our base case is going to be. So if num equals 0, then we're just going to go ahead and say return 0. Simple as that. And this right here is going to be our base case, and that's what I'll go ahead and label it as, so base case. Anyways, from the previous tutorial, remember that the base case is what stops the recursion. So if we didn't have a base case in our function would just keep calling itself over and over again, and it would never end. And that's obviously not what we want. We need to have a base case so that our function can return and give us a value. So the next thing that we actually need to do is just come up with well, not really come up with, we need to solve a few simple problems first. And that first problem being, how do we extract a digit from a number? So how do we extract this last digit right here inside of this number? And believe it or not, it's just really simple. And all you really have to do is just take your number and mod it by 10. That's all that's going to do. And remember that modulus is simply the remainder. So it's dividing 237 by 10 and then getting the remainder, and that would just be 7. So yeah, that's just all you have to do in order to get the last digit in a number, well, a base 10 number. And then the next thing that we have to do is figure out how to chop off the last digit in a number. And that too is very simple. All we have to do is just take our number and divide it by 10. And since we're dealing with integers here, it just chops off everything after the decimal place. So even though this would be 23.7, it's actually going to give us 23. It doesn't round it at all. It just chops off everything after that decimal place. So if I go in the Windows calculator right here, and if you have the view set to programmer, it'll go ahead and do integer division. It won't do anything with decimal places or fractions or anything like that. So if I just take our number, 237, and divide it by 10, that should just give us 23, and it does. So 23. Alright, and that's really all that we need in order to solve our problem. So this is exactly what we're going to do in our program right here. The first thing that we're going to do is just chop off the last digit from our number, so we're going to get 7, and then what we're going to do is just add that last digit to the summation of the digits in the remainder, or the rest of the number. So we just say 7, which is the last digit, plus some digits of, digits of 23. And that will work for us flawlessly. So we can just go back in here and say return num mod 10, which is chopping off the last digit, and then we're just going to go ahead and add the last digit to the sum of the rest of the digits in the number. So we can just say sum digits of num divided by 10. And remember, we have to divide it by 10 so that we're not adding the same digit twice. If I didn't divide this by 10 right here, it would never hit this base case because we would never end up passing through 0. So that's why we have to chop off that last digit that we already added right here. Okay, so now let's just go ahead and follow this through step by step so you can actually analyze what exactly is going on. And instead of using a 3-digit number for the example, I'm going to go ahead and use a 2-digit number so I'm not just writing out a bunch of stuff way too much. So we're going to say that our example input is 53. So 53 is our input example right here. And the first thing that it does is it compares the input number to 0. Is 53 0? No, it's not. So it's going to come down here and do this code. So it's going to chop off the last digit, which gives us 3. So 53 mod 10 is 3. And then it's going to divide 53 by 10 to chop off that last digit, divided by 10, and it'll give us 5. And then it's just going to take 3 plus the sum of all the digits in 5. So the sum of 5, and then it's going to obviously make another call. So it comes down here, it does 5 mod 10, mod 10, which gives us 5, and then it's going to divide 5 by 10 to chop off the last digit, which gives us 0. And then what it'll do is it'll just go ahead and say 5 plus the sum of all the digits in 0. And this is when it hits our base case. We pass through 0 right here. It compares this input number to 0, and since 0 is 0, it returns 0. So it comes back from this function call and it performs this addition right here. So it does 5 plus 0, which gives us 5. And that in turn will return. It'll return from this function call, and then it will be able to perform this addition. So it'll do 3 plus 5, which is 8. And then it'll return from that function call and give it back to the caller. So now let's just go ahead and test this function out to make sure that it works. So we're just going to say printf mod I end the line, and then we're just going to go ahead and call some digits on 53, which should equal 8, since 5 plus 3 is obviously 8. And there we go, it worked perfectly. And we can just test it on some bigger numbers to make sure that it works with those as well. So we'll say 999. That should give us 27. And there we go, it did. Alright, so that's pretty much it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, I think we'll go ahead and go over that second practice problem. Alright, so see you guys.